Sanhedrin Daf Yomi Sanhedrin, contamination, infection, and inspiration. Lirasha, לשכנו. When I was a young boy learning in Kfar Hasidim, I was going into Haifa one Friday, and before I went in, I popped into Rebellia. Kfar Hasidim is just outside Haifa, Rabbi Lapin, and I said, "I'm going into Haifa. Do you need anything at Haifa? I can get it for you." And he looked at me in absolute horror. He said, "You're going to Haifa?" I said, "Yeah, to Haifa." He said, "I'm in my 90s and I'm blind in one eye, and I wouldn't risk going into Haifa. And you're a young teenager with full eyesight, and you're willing to risk going into Haifa?" So I thought it was very cute at the time, but it obviously stayed with me all my life. I certainly didn't think he was serious, that he wouldn't go to Haifa because he was afraid of the influence of the environment on him, on the great Rabbi Lapin. But I've come to learn that he was absolutely sincere and serious about that, and that to him the danger in going to Haifa was even greater than the danger was for me. It's something one feels if you're sensitive. When you go overseas, I was in the United States two weeks ago, the moment you get there, there's a recalibration of a value system. The moment you come back, you're walking through the airport already, and there's a recalibration of a value system. Because the need to fit in is so great that the only way one can fit in is to recalibrate. You can't live in the United States with a value system that is fit for Yerushalayim or for Bnei Brak. You can't live in Yerushalayim or Bnei Brak with a value system, or anywhere in Eretz Israel, with a value system that's suitable for New York or for Los Angeles. You'll be very miserable in both situations. So we find ourselves unconsciously calibrating our value system to become part of the environment in which we live. And we'll understand the depths of environmental pressure in this piece of Gemara, based on the posuk in Dvorim, Al pi shnei edim or al pi shlosha edim yakum davar. When you establish anything in a court of law, it has to be established through two witnesses or three witnesses. So the Gemara is dealing with why two or three. If you can use two, of course you can use three. Three is better than two. Why does the Torah add not only two edim, but three edim as well? Rabbi Akiva Omer, Lo ba'shlishi ela lahachmir alav. This addition of the third witness is to tell you that if there is a third witness, he's treated in a way more seriously than the other two. La'asot dino ki yotzei be'elu. To make his din as the same as the others. And Rashi explains, two witnesses come along and they say A killed B. The third witness comes along and says, "Yes, I also saw that A killed B." Now the first two witnesses all the witnesses are muzamim. They prove to be false. Another two witnesses come and say, "Imanu ayitim, you weren't there that day, you were with us in a different place altogether, so clearly you're not telling the truth." The third witness might claim, "But I'm not really involved because they would have killed the accused without me. He was already a dead man. I didn't add anything. I just came along." Comes the Gemara, comes the Torah. This says Rabbi Akiva to teach us. The Torah comes to teach us. No, he is treated in the same way as everybody else. Although he wasn't the potential cause or the cause potentially of the death of the accused. Nevertheless, he's treated as the group of Eidim, and he gets the same kind of punishment. And then Rabbi Akiva says, if Hashem is willing to punish hanitpalla of rei avera, look at that word carefully. If Hashem is willing to punish one who attaches himself to those who do wrong, as the wrongdoers themselves, can you imagine how Hashem rewards an individual who attaches himself to righteous people, even if he doesn't do the same mitzvot, but he's part of that community? So we see the judgment by association, that the Rebbeinu Shalom judges us by association. There's an amazing Ben Gaius that the Nemuki Yosef brings in Makos, because this is a Mishnah in Makos on Perik Hey, and on Daf Hey, we'll get to it soon. And then Nemuki Yosef brings the Ben Gaius. The Ben Gaius was one of the first Rishonim, right after the period of the Goinim, during the time of the Rif. This is 11th century, and he's in Spain, and he writes, "Di muzmu hashnayim afa pi shelo hu zam hagimel naaseh kulam zomamin va'anash hakatuv hashlishi shenitpal l'shnayim she'avru ve'idu shekel kiyotzei bahem." Even if the third one is not muzam, this is a major chiddush, others don't learn this way, that even if the Eidei Hazamah, the second set, who prove the first set to be false, only direct their attention to the first two witnesses, but have no evidence that the third one is false. So two witnesses come and say, A killed B. It happened in such and such a place at such and such a time. A third witness says, I saw it too. Two witnesses come, they mazim the first two witnesses. They say, Reuven and Shimon, you weren't in that place at that time. You were with us very far away. What about the third one? We don't know. Says the Regeus, the third one gets the same punishment, although we have no proof that he did anything wrong. Why? That's the nitzpal over avera. Shenitzpal lishnayim shavru veidu sheki yotzeh bim alma shabet huzmu velo ashlishi. Dilu zam gam ashlishi gam hoaya nikra over avera. He wouldn't be a nitzpal if he was also part of the group that was muzam. He wouldn't be a nitzpal. He wouldn't be attached to sinners. He would be the sinner. Says the Ritzkei, you can see from the Lashon of the Mishnah that he's attached, meaning there's no proof that he did anything wrong. But he could get the death sentence for doing nothing wrong, or for no proof of doing anything wrong. What did he do wrong? What he did wrong was he was together with them. Unbelievable chiddush of the power of association. That in itself is wrong. You don't have to do any wrong. If you're with wrongdoers, you're wrong. You're part of it. You're there by association. Why should this third one be punished, sir? So we see in Pirkei Avot, Nita Arbeli Omer, in the first chapter of Pirkei Avot, Harchek mishachen ra v'al titchaber l'rasha. Distance yourself from a bad neighbor, and don't connect yourself to wicked people. Says the Rav two things. One, shelo tilmod mima'asav, because you're likely to learn from the people you're around. Things become the norm. You see people doing things, you see people taking on certain practices, and you start doing it as well. Ve'od, notice what the Rav says here, and there's another reason. Shelo tilakei mo b'mapalato, so that you don't end up being destroyed when he gets destroyed. When Hashem punishes him, you don't want to be punished as well. What's the ve'od? You're going to be punished because you did wrong. You learned from him. No, says the Rav. You might be punished even though you did nothing wrong. Just because you're there. Just because you're part of the group, you could be punished the same way as they're punished. Why? That's in alignment with the Regeus. That it's possible for this third aid to be punished, although there's no proof that he actually did anything wrong. The Chosid Yavitz is an amazing person, wrote an incredible parish on Pirkei Avos. He was in Lisbon during the time of the Abarbanel. And that amazing period in the 15th century. And he writes, there's a difference between a shachen ra and a rasha. A shachen ra you've got to remove yourself from. If you're in a neighborhood of bad people, go and live somewhere else. A rasha you don't have to remove yourself from. If you're near a rasha, you don't have to physically move away. Just don't deal with him. Don't have any dealings with him. Sheshchunat haraim Gonevet tiv'o shel adam. What a phrase. Because a bad neighborhood robs a person of his character. Robs a person of his character. That's what a bad neighborhood does. Because it finds out that you'll find that your family will be doing things v'lo targish, you won't even notice. That's the robbery. A robber is you don't notice the robber coming. That all of a sudden you notice your standards have dropped and dropped and dropped. You didn't even notice it happening. That's the danger. But it still seems, according to the Chosid Yavitz, that you're doing something wrong. It's just that, and that's why you're going to be punished. You're doing something wrong, just that you're not aware of it. It's not. There's no awareness of the wrongdoing. But Rabbeinu Yonah learns differently, and Rabbeinu Yonah says that being connected with a rasha, it results in an onesh, in a punishment, in a severe punishment, she'en k'moto, like nothing else. Ki achet hachamur pasha bo asa avera achat. Because if you did a terrible avera, it's a terrible thing, you did a bad avera, but you just did one. That's it. Aval zeh b'chol ha'averot she'oseh harasha yesh lo chelek b'hem. But if you are associated with wicked people, you have a part in every avera they do, although you have done nothing. That's the power of association. So Rebellia says you're okay to walk around in Haifa among people who are of a different kind of ilk. You realize you become part of that for that period of time. You're part of it. Whatever they're doing, you're doing as well. But I'm not doing anything. I'm an innocent little yeshiva bocher going and doing my business. No such thing. And we see that in the Rabbinah. You cannot disassociate yourself from your environment. Even though you're not doing it, you get the punishment, the outcome, as if you did do it. And if you're living in a righteous neighborhood with righteous people, you're part of their lives. And you get merit for what they're doing, even though you're not doing the same things. That's the nature of association. And this word nitpal is critically important, because as I thought of this and trying to understand, why would Hashem punish somebody who did nothing wrong? Why would Hashem reward somebody who did nothing right? Just because you're with people, is that really fair? Is that really just? But this word nitpal is very interesting. Nitpal means connected to, but nitpal also means something else. It comes from the word tafel. Tafel means making yourself secondary to. So even though I'm making myself secondary, this third witness is making himself secondary. He's not part of the accusation team, because the accusation team is complete without him. There are two witnesses without him. He's nitpal. What does tafel mean? If you have bread and batter, you make the bracha on the bread, not on the batter, because the batter is tafel to the bread, which is an ikar. If you have dressing on your salad, you make a bracha on the salad, because that's the ikar. The dressing is the tafel. So why do you have dressing? To give flavor to the ikar. Why do you put butter on your bread? To give flavor to the bread. Nitpal. The reason I'm there. So what are you doing there? Somebody, A murdered B. Two witnesses come to court. They don't need you. Why are you there? Why are you also giving evidence? Nitpal, I want to be flavored by them. I want to be accepted by them. I want to be part of them. I want to be the tafel that is enhanced by my association with these important people. And that's why values calibrate, because we become tafel. It's not because we become part of the ikar that we become part of the society in which we are. It's because we are tafel. So why are you being part of this? Because I wanted to brush off on me a little bit. I want to be part of it. So that idea of nitpal, if you look carefully at the word tafel, explains the danger, explains what's wrong. That you're looking at it and you begin to admire it. It starts becoming something that is normal. There's an amazing piece of Rabbi Yerucham where he explains a much shorter piece of Rabbi Simcha Zissel. And one of the things he says in passing there, in his time already, he says, look how the children worship the sports stars. Where did that come from? He says that the Goyim do that. There's nothing new. They've been doing it since Roman times, since Greek. It's part of their culture. But it has never, ever been part of Jewish culture. Never been our culture. To worship the sportsmen, to worship film stars. But let's talk about sportsmen. It seems quite innocent. Guy plays good football and the kids have got his picture all over the place. Is that such a terrible thing? Yes, why are you doing? Because you're becoming part of a society. And it shows what you value. It shows the value system changing. That's what happened, the recalibration of the value system. And you see to what that extent is. He says in the bottom paragraph that Lakachnu biyadenu kol Torat ha'umot. We have subconsciously adopted the Torah of the nations of the world. Ein banu af ever echad atzmi. We no longer have an independent limb. Hainu Yisraeli, Torah dika. We don't have a Torah dika limb. He says, I'm not talking about whether you're frum or not. No, we do all the mitzvahs. Ela bi'ikar al mabatenu odot klal hachayim. I'm talking about the way we look at life, our worldview. Our worldview has drifted. We've allowed our worldview to drift and to be influenced by the environment in which we are. V'hashkafot al sidur hachayim, how we look at how life is established. Kol hachayim, chayi atzmi, one's personal life, chayi biti, the family life, chayi mishpachti, the social life. Kol mataratenu v'hashkafotenu rachmana litzlan hu hashkafat ha'umot. We've taken on the attitude of the nations of the world. And he writes, how important, therefore, to be able to rid oneself of this need to be accepted. Of this need, it comes from an inner insecurity. If you have this terrible need to be accepted, make sure you live among tzaddikim, and that you want to be accepted by tzaddikim. But if you have a need to be accepted and you're living among people who have a different value system, know that you will adjust your value system accordingly. The Reb Simcha Zissel brings, and Reb Yeruchim explains the Vilna Gaon, where the Vilna Gaon says in the first paragraph of this piece that I bring, Yesh shnei minei yetzer hara. There are two types of yetzer hara. Yetzer hara shebifnim v'yetzer hara shebachutz. The inner yetzer hara that makes us want to do bad things, the ego, the drives, the passions that a person has, they make us want to do bad things. Rabbi Yeruchim explains in this piece, that's easy to manage. The second one that the Vilna Gaon talks about is the Yetzer Hara shebachutz, the force that comes externally. There's an exterior Yetzer Hara that drives you, that pressures you through the desire, the need to be accepted. And that's the much greater Yetzer Hara. And in this piece, Rabbi Yeruchim explains why the external Yetzer Hara is much more powerful, much stronger, much harder to resist than the inner Yetzer Hara. We spend our time thinking about the inner Yetzer Hara and self-development and self-awareness, self. Forget about self. Just look at around you. Where are you? What is your society? What is your value system? Whose approval are you trying to gain? That's what really becomes important, is how we calibrate our lives. That's why the Rambam says in Hilchos Deis, if you find that you're not left to live wherever you go, and he says, like our days, says the Rambam, where every country is a difficult country to live in because the values are corrupt. And to be part of society, you've got to adopt those values to some degree. If you find yourself living in such a situation, then the better thing to do is to go off. Go and live in the desert. Whether it's a metaphoric desert, that you live in your own world, that you live with your own values, and that you're not seeking the approval of the people around you, or you are. If you look at social media and the force of that on the children, all about seeking approval. And how do you seek approval? By giving them what they want, giving them what they admire, doing what they consider valuable. That's the whole world in which we're living. We talked about the difference between Rishus HaYachid and Rishus HaRabim in the Chanukah Shir, and what it means to live in a Rishus HaRabim. Living in a Rishus HaRabim means I need the acceptance of the Rabbim. A Rishus HaYachid is where I control my environment. And this is something we see over and over again as being so critically important. One can live and one can exist in an environment and be heavily influenced by it. I was talking to a young man yesterday about how many people in the United States, he's in the United States, and he's worried that every day he stays there makes it harder for him to come to Eretz Yisrael, because it's just so easy. The whole value system is geared to the comfort and the ease, and it's something you feel when you get off the plane. You get off the plane and you think, it's actually quite easy over here. Things work, people are courteous, it's not a bad place. And you start making comparisons, and all of a sudden you find yourself starting to make adjustments and valuing things differently. That's the power of the environment in which we're in. And if this is the case, that the environment negatively impacts us, and that the Rebbeinu Shalom judges us by the people whose approval we're trying to gain, even if we haven't done anything wrong, just the fact that we're trying to gain the approval of those people, like this person who's nitpal ovrei avera, alachat kama v'kama sheyishalem schar ala nitpal osei mitzvah k'osei mitzvah. When you find yourself surrounded by people who are good, by people who are moral, by people who are ethical, by people who are living for a higher purpose and serving Hashem in everything they do, even if you're not on their level, you're part of their society, and you will recalibrate your value system and your worldview to align with theirs. And for that, the Rebbeinu Shalom rewards us.